Hey there, welcome to Concept Hunter. Sorry for being sick last week, but now I'm back with Perspective. This is a student game done by a bunch of students over the course of a semester. They didn't actually write where they're from, which is interesting, but doesn't really matter. And this was done in Unity. Now this is really cool for me because I was up to recently also a student and I work with Unity. So it's cool for me to check out this type of game. And we're going to get into it, but bear with me, it's a student game, right? So what we're going to see here is, it's a student game, you know, it doesn't look amazing. We're definitely going to focus on the design of the game more than anything else. So we're a cute little robot, we move left and right, we space, we use the space to jump, which in most cases I'd say it's bad, but it's okay. I like using the up arrow when I'm in 2D in order to jump, but there's a very good reason why that's not the case in this game. And you continue moving, but before I get to this impassable wall and using shift in order to do something unique, which I'm assuming you could guess by now, I want to talk about the controls as they are right now, and it actually carries on forward as well. The first thing about a platformer is controls. The first thing, it needs to feel good. Moving around left and right needs to feel good. And that has to do with the jump and the speed in most cases. And I feel that's a little bit slow here. And also that the jump is a little bit too floaty for me. And it doesn't click very well. It's very precise. It's always the exact same jump. There's no holding the space for a longer jump or anything like that. But it feels very long until it lands down. And this is my personal preference, my personal feeling, but it's really important that it feels good to the player, and it really doesn't feel that great to me. The best way to do that, to figure out, to find the sweet spot, is to just test it out a little bit here, a little bit there, faster, bigger, a little bit more floatier, and try it out until it feels really, really good. And I wanted to mention that because that's something that you need to do and test out from a very early stage. And the end result here, I didn't exactly love. So we're going to talk about controls in a little bit more, but now let's see what makes this game so cool. Shift our perspective. Yes, so now it's also 3D, and now we immediately understand why up doesn't jump, and we have space for that because now we're in 3D. So we have 3D, we can shift the perspective whenever we want to, and it's actually on the shift key, which is really cool. But it won't let me do that if I'm blocked, which is important, and I can also do that in midair, which is also important for specific puzzles and stuff like that. This is something really cool, and I have to say that I really enjoyed solving puzzles by jumping and then switching the perspective in midair, because this is emergent gameplay. When you take one of the basic things you could do, jumping, and one of the other basic things you could do, which is changing the perspective, and you combine them and you create more gameplay with the basic items of gameplay, you create more gameplay. That's really, really cool. So the fact that you use that, there are puzzles where you need to do that, is great, and I really love that. Now here, I want to show you my problem with controls, and this is clearly a bug, but it one that plagues quite a lot of platformers. Note that I'm still on the box, but I'm going to reach the edge, and clearly I'm in a state where I'm falling, but I'm still on the box. I'm sure the coders know exactly what I'm talking about, but just to explain it, I'm pressing space and I can't jump. This leads you to, when you're trying to jump off the edge, you'll sometimes miss it, and then you'll try and you just miss it, though. I was on the edge, it was fine, but it didn't jump, and you fall down and you feel like crap because it feels like the game is at fault and not you, because I didn't screw up, it was the game, it didn't jump. And that's really terrible. That's a very basic thing that you have to fix. Really, really need to fix that. It's so annoying when it happens. So this was the tutorial, by the way. This was just the tutorial, and we actually have 4 different worlds. In each of them, clearly there's a different mechanic, and we're gonna start with the grass just to take a look a little bit at what they really do here. So I started 2D, and I think you always start at 2D. But I feel that 2D isn't the standard state of things. I feel like it's always 3D, and I use 2D as a special power when I need to. And actually, before I continue, I want to show you something really cool here. Note that I'm on the right side, but now when I'm jumping on this one, it maintains me where I should be, so it's the left side. And that's a really cool way of how the 2D into 3D works. But going back, I feel like I'm always in 3D unless I have to use my superpower of 2D, and that's it. And, you know, let's finish this level, and then we'll talk a little bit more about that. Because here there's another something that really pissed me off. Why am I going back into the camera? Why am I have no idea where I'm going. So the first jump here will always fail, and then you have to do it again. This is guaranteed failure from the player until he knows he has to jump to the left. Unless he's lucky. And this is, I don't like going back. I have no information. I really have no information. This isn't like Crash Bandicoot that you could run into the screen, the camera. I don't like this at all. You don't get enough information running into the camera, so please don't do that ever again. Now here we have this cool part where you have to jump forward and then switch perspective. And I really, really enjoy it. When I saw this, I said, wow, that's a really cool mechanic. That's really good on you. Now, note how when I pass this in 3D, it actually becomes a little bit transparent. The alpha goes down, so I could look through it. But there's a problem with this game, and it also comes back to what I said earlier about the 2D and 3D, that the 2D is kind of like a special power. And I think I found the reason why. It was really up on the tip of my tongue for a little bit, and I kept playing in order to try and figure that out. And I feel the reason is that I don't get enough information. And what I mean is, note how little information I have in 2D. I have, if we start at the block to the left, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, barely. Not even 7 blocks. And vertically, note that at the beginning, the whole start of the bottom of the screen here is actually the ground I'm standing on with a little bit of space to spare. And then I have, what, 1, 2, 3 spaces vertical upwards? That's so little information. I can barely see what's going on. This is a puzzle game. And in the later levels, you have puzzles that are much bigger, much longer. And I can barely... To try and grasp everything and to figure it out, it's very difficult because I can't see much with the camera. I wish you'd just take it back. And clearly this is something you have to do very early on to take the camera back because the design kind of stands on it. But there's a lack of information. And in 3D, there's also quite a big lack of information. I mean, it depends on when's the next wall that shuts me off. And you did build the levels in the way of there's a puzzle, and then there's another puzzle, and then there's another puzzle, which is perfectly fine. But I don't really see enough. And when the puzzles are a little bit big, I really lose myself, and I kind of stopped playing in the later levels, I believe. By the way, why doesn't escape work? Why is it only P? Escape should work as well. I mean, it's escape. And enter maybe in menus as well. I believe it was in the... Now I don't really exactly remember, but... In the later levels of the grass, maybe it was the 4th one, there was so much clutter, there's so little that I could actually see that I just didn't... There's too many things happening, and I don't really know what's happening, and I need to go around here, and how can I make sense of what I'm seeing right now? I can't really make sense of it, and I have to try different things and kind of trial and error, trying to memorize it. There's just not enough information, is what I'm trying to say. There really isn't enough information, and that's because of the counter state. Now, this would be great. This, as an example, would be wonderful to see the game in this perspective of diagonally, 2.5D it's normally called, might be a lot better. And I don't know if you've tried it or not, but maybe it's something to consider here, that instead of being in 3D, I know you want to do it all the way, but maybe just stop it right there, 2.5D, and take the camera back a bit. You'd give so much more information to the player, and the game would be more playable, more enjoyable, I feel. The last thing I want to talk about is actually in the sand levels. Clearly, remember, every level has something a little bit different mechanic. Here you have cacti that kill you. And that's fine, but this is the only area where things can actually kill you. And what happens when you die is that you go all the way back to the beginning of the level because there are no checkpoints in the game at all. Now, if I pass, almost all of your obstacles and I reach almost the last area, which is right here, and I die here, and you send me all the way to the back, that is immense frustration. And I wish you had checkpoints. Why don't you have checkpoints? Please have checkpoints at specific areas. You can do them in whatever way you want, But there's no reason to not have checkpoints, especially if you kill me. In other levels, you can't die. You could just, mess up the puzzle. But you can't die, so you'll be fine. Here you die, and don't send me all the way back. That's kind of terrible. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is also has to do with backtracking, and this is this reset button. When you have boxes that you can move around, you could screw it up. And that is because you can only push boxes, you cannot pull them. Why can't you pull them? That's something to think about, but you can only push them. So if I push it all the way to the left, I can't actually push it to the right anymore, and I'm kind of stuck, because I need to push it to forward, but I can't do that. So I have to press this reset button, which reset all of the boxes. Now this is a couple of issues, because think about 4 different boxes, and you move them around to specific areas, and then you make one tiny mistake, and you have to reset, and it resets all of the boxes. And that's immense frustration for the player. And that's, frustration is the one thing you want to avoid as much as possible. That's why I really don't like that option of the reset button. It really, really doesn't speak to me. And I wish you'd found, there are other ways clearly of doing that, of helping the player achieve whatever state they want with the boxes. And one of them that I could, just at the top of my head that isn't pulling boxes is that if I'm over here, and it might not solve everything, but it might help a little bit, if I'm pushing it forward and to the right, and moving myself to the right, they'll move a little bit to the right. So I could try this a little bit to the right until I can move behind it and actually all the way push it. I don't know if it'll solve every puzzle, but it'll help out quite a lot, and it's a beginning to some kind of solution. The reset button is frustrating if you make a tiny mistake and you have 4 boxes or so, and in later stages you do. So, a very long episode of Concept Hunter today because I had so much to talk about, and I hope you take it all in good spirit, as usual. And yeah, that's it. It's really cool for me to see this. I understand, the biggest thing about student games is that you don't have time, and that's why, this game lacks polish, and polish is the thing that you add at the end. The core gameplay, however, the core concept, is very cute, and it's fun, and it works, and your designs are interesting, and the puzzles are difficult and cool. I wish they weren't as frustrating, though. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching Concept Hunter, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.